right, we back. Fourth Quarter Boy Sports. It is the illustrious Professor Lake, and we're going to wrap up the Chicago Bears 2018 Undrafted series. You know, it's been fun just taking a look at some of these guys. So I'm going to cut through this real quick because we got more things in store for you guys during this off season. So hold on tight. Again, Fourth Quarter Boy Sports. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You know, I'm excited about this new season coming up. And with that excitement, it just forced me to delve in on some of these players that we don't know a lot about, but are definitely going to be competing for some of the last roster spots on the 53-man roster. But the first player we're going to discuss today is Nick Orr, safety out of TCU, Texas Christian University. He was 5'10", 187 pounds, a 3-year starter. His sophomore year, he was first all Big 12. He totaled 66 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 3 tackles for a loss. In his junior season, he was second team all Big 12 with 86 tackles and 4 interceptions. So basically some of the takeaways from Nick Orr is that he has average size for a safety. He plays aggressive, and he can track the ball in the air. Negatives, they say when his back is against the wall, you know, he hasn't really showed improved. We'll check him out, see what he has left in the tank. You know, on a special teams basis, maybe he's a good tackler. You know, it seems like he could take some people down. They also said he's, you know, an average tackler as well, even though he has these sort of totals. But that's Nick Orr, safety out of TCU. Look for him to be a contributor on special teams or the practice squad if, you know, he remains a Bear. The next player that we're going to talk about is Shaq Roland, a 6'2", 170-pound wide receiver out of West Georgia. He started out his football career at the University of South Carolina, where he played for 3 years. And then he, you know, left football alone for 3 more years, and then he later came back to West Georgia. You know, I think maybe he, you know, rediscovered his love for the game, and he continued to want to compete. So he ended up going to West Georgia to finish out. And, you know, this is just a tryout, so we'll see where it goes. But definitely a player that I think they're trying to find a spot for on special teams. So that's Shaq Roland, wide receiver out of West Georgia. The next player we're going to talk about is a 6'5", 217-pound punter out of Pittsburgh named Ryan Winslow. Statistically, he averaged about 42.1 yards per punt throughout his college career. You know, what more can I say? You know, we bring him into camp. He gets some of these special teams guys ready. And, you know, if he's serviceable, we stick him there on the practice squad in case we get an injured guy and we need to replace our punter. Ryan Winslow, punter out of Pittsburgh. The last guy that we're going to talk about today is one of the more intriguing guys. You know, he hasn't stacked up a lot of numbers over his college career, but what I will say is he was able to generate a lot of buzz by recording an unofficial 40 time of 4.19 seconds. Now, the guy that we're talking about is named John Franklin III. I'm sure if you've been on YouTube, you've probably seen a lot of clips of him in his workout. But he played quarterback for Auburn. While he was there at Auburn in 2016, passing yards are 14 of 26 for 204 yards and 1 touchdown. He was able to run for 430 yards and 2 touchdowns. When he transferred to Florida Atlantic University, he switched over to wide receiver. Again, not great numbers, but what I do notice is that he's a runner. He seems to be able to get a lot of yardage. I'm not sure how many touches he's getting, but he seems to be able to get a lot of yards with few touches. So I'm liking that. So when he went to Florida Atlantic, he caught 7 passes for 95 yards and 1 touchdown. He ended up running the ball 16 times for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that's John Franklin III, and he's coming out of Florida Atlantic University. You know, I just look at him as a guy that continues to try to compete. It looks like he wants to be a football player, and he's doing everything he can to stay out in front of the scouts' radar. You know, as someone in his position that didn't really get a lot of playing time, you know, seems like a positionless player. I think he also tried out at defensive back at one of the schools, and I don't think he did that well. But the one thing that I noticed that it appears that he could do well is run the ball and score touchdowns. So maybe if there's a scheme, or maybe you could put him back there at kick return, maybe he could provide your team a spark. Definitely a developmental player. You could throw him on your practice squad, and I think that he's going to help your first teamers and your second teamers out a lot with his speed. At the same time, he'll be able to work on his skills, maybe possibly be that kick returner, a la Devin Hester, a positionless guy with a whole lot of speed. And it's hard to find a spot for him on the football field, but if he could get the ball in his hands, he may do great things. With that in mind, that wraps it up for the Chicago Bears Undrafted series. It's been great. I even learned a little bit about some of these players and where they come from, what some of their obstacles were, and I do understand why a lot of these guys were undrafted. But with that in mind, it's Fourth Quarter Boy Sports. I am the illustrious Professor Lake. You know how I do this, man. I'm about to keep feeding y'all and feeding y'all and feeding y'all. Love the Bears. All I do is talk football and look at tape. If you're not a Bear fan and you happen to stumble across my channel, scroll through the videos and see if I covered one of the rookies that you guys drafted this season. So I also do film sessions. I don't really give out grades, but I just analyze the tape and give you my opinion on, technique, performance, and just things of that nature. But it's Fourth Quarter Boy Sports. Like, comment, share, subscribe. It's your boy, the illustrious Professor Lake, and keep tuning in. But right now, I'm gone.